Aron, thank you so much for joining me today. I have a ton of builders that have many questions about the Agentforce building experience, and something tells me that there are your fingerprints all over it. So tell me, when you're at a dining table with someone outside of the Salesforce ecosystem, how do you describe what it is that you do?
Yeah. Maybe in too many words, which might be a problem into itself.
Well, give it a shot.
I view my job as helping build the products that allow people to take advantage of this crazy innovation of AI to get work done for their business. So basically help people build agents to help run their business.
That was neat. If I can do as good of a job when I describe my job, you gave me a new standard. Thank you so much.
I'll do my best.
So as part of building this Agentforce builder, you had a ton of office hour going on for the past couple of months. What would be a key takeaway? Maybe some of the questions that kept coming up that you felt like the builders had in mind?
Yeah. I think there's kind of like two big categories of questions. Like one is the kind of needle in a haystack type things. Like, hey, I ran into like this small issue. And those are really valuable for us just because each of those we can bring back into the product and figure out how we make error messages more clear, how we just make things a little easier. But the larger, like big picture question is just trying to find the balance of like, what is the right way to build on these new capabilities that are changing under our feet every single day? And that is a harder question to answer because the answer changes as the technology changes too. And I think more than anything, focusing on the mindset that goes with it and building iteratively and testing and having a really tight feedback loop is the most important thing that we continue to emphasize coming out of those discussions.
Like, for example, throwing in like a new action that you want to put your agent to do and trying to get the insights, if it worked or not, and if it, or like troubleshooting what the reasoning is doing. That's the feedback that you have right away as you're building the agent.
Yeah, that's the goal. And even as we continue to improve, and hopefully you'll feel with improvements coming out this week, continue to make like, as you're writing in the builder, immediate feedback of error messages or warnings, like based on how this is written, this might not work the way you want. And trying to pull forward more and more of that information so you get feedback as you're writing, and then of course immediately as you preview and test.
And speaking of mindset to adapt, there is something that everyone is learning right now. It's Agentforce Script. What led you and your team to build a new language?
Yeah, from like a starting position, there's this recognition that with LLMs we discovered this like fire, this like new magical power in technology. And for this fire, the oxygen's text. And the more we could articulate an agent in what AI is best at working with, which is the text file, the better it was going to be at accelerating our builders, making it portable, making it easier to work with. So philosophically, that's a big piece of what we wanted, is how do we move from structured tables and junction objects and kind of like something that's hard for a human or an AI to read and interpret to something more unified and flatter. Beyond that, in terms of like the language itself, I think we still have some work to do to achieve the vision of kind of the why behind creating a new scripting language unto itself. But our vision there is very much like the world didn't need another way to write if-else statements. We have that. But we want to continue to improve it and optimize for the specific patterns that people need to build agents and make it really elegant and easy to express those things. So we have some of that with the ability to transition across focuses and run actions in line, but we want to get to a place where you can say, like, collect this data. And it's a little bit of determinism and a little bit of probabilistic reasoning mixed together. But instead of doing this complex if-else state machine build-out, you can kind of really elegantly say in this language, here are the common things agents need to do and how to do them. And that's something we're continuing to pursue.
You mentioned the deterministic aspect, and that's one of the big news that came out in the past few weeks, right? Is that we now have the ability to harness a little bit the creativity of the large language models that we're using. Can you tell me a little bit more about how to balance out what needs to be deterministic and what can be left for agents to create?
Yeah, like all good questions, the answer is it depends. And it really does depend a little bit on your business and your requirements and what you're looking to achieve. I think the first thing I'd say is back to that first mindset, which is being really iterative about it. Starting simple with just some basic instructions and testing and seeing where things go off the rails tells you where you need to tighten things up and have some more control. customers and builders are a lot more successful that way than they are doing a bunch of work in slides and spreadsheets and theorizing about what should be what way versus kind of iterating into it. And with that said, kind of the right frame is let code, let logic, let determinism do the stuff it's good at. Filtering something out that's only available under a certain condition, certainly anything like compliance or regulation related. One of our CX writers called it like a deterministic sandwich of like, do some determinism up front to manage the context and make sure you're asking the LLM the right thing. Let the LLM do its part. And then when it takes actions, if there's things that should always happen in order, use determinism to let that happen. And what it really unlocks is the ability to rely on LLMs for what they're good at and not have to go through the pain of prompt engineering and testing and model drift for the things that you just want to happen a certain way every time, that you can express that way.
Yeah, I see. And you now have to balance it out between when it's too much determinism, when it's not enough determinism, with all the feedback loop and the testing capability that we have available right there in the builder. That might be a way to look at it. Let's first put determinism where it matters, but then let's hold ourselves from putting it everywhere, because we'd be back in just plain code, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And get those test results back in to see the edge cases that do need better guardrails.
Yeah, and the models just keep getting better and better. So like, there's nothing wrong with letting the LLM make decisions and be fluid and control the things you're comfortable with it controlling. But there are some things you just don't want to outsource to an LLM. You don't want the LLM to guess what your return policy is, or to guess if this customer is eligible for a return. So if you encode those pieces, honestly, part of it's just peace of mind that you don't have to test and verify that the model isn't interpreting it different on Wednesday than it did on Tuesday.
And so now thinking about the builder, we have 3 different experiences, right? So what are those choices, and what could help builders to decide which one they want to start working on an Agentforce with?
Yeah, part of, again, going back to when we were early Figma drawing board for kind of reimagining the build experience, we had this idea of being able to kind of flip back and forth between different views of the same thing. A more code-like view, and then a friendlier, more admin-like view. That became our canvas. And then, of course, just being able to like talk to AI to do that. And I think the thing that has been most surprising to me since we've launched it is, in our heads, we kind of imagined it as like you land in a camp. You're either like, oh, I'm not comfortable working in code, I'm going to be in the canvas, or vice versa. And I have found that people are not that easy to pigeonhole. And we find people who are admins who are never comfortable coding, who start using the builder, and they realize, oh, it's actually pretty nice that I can flip over to the script view and see like exactly what's happening under the hood for this part. And then people who lean more developer, who enjoy being able to flip to the canvas and see this visualization of what they're working with and kind of see everything come together. So the goal is really to meet you where you are, and you're always working off the same source of truth. But I generally have been surprised in a positive way how fluid kind of what tool fits the person really is. And then, of course, anyone who's using tools like Claude Code or paying attention right now realizes that just like building conversationally is only gaining more and more momentum. And we're working really hard to make sure our experience in the product meets what's in the market for that capability. And we think it'll be eventually pretty differentiated when you have increasingly powerful agents to help you build, plus the visualizations and tools to kind of like go turn a knob 1 degree to the right when you really want to.
And it's going to probably be also use case specific, persona specific, who's using the tool. I like the flexibility. Like there's a way to build for any type of mindset.
Yeah, and I think the thing to emphasize too is we're not in a world where your first party builder is the only way to build anymore. So we have fully supported pro code extensions. You can build on Agentforce from Claude Code, from Cursor, from Agentforce Vibes, from any IDE of your choice. And again, it's all working off the same source of truth. So one of the things that I think has really been an unlock since we've launched these pieces is seeing different personas who prefer different tools all working together to build it.
As you were building the tool, your own closed feedback loop was a group of early adopters, and you had the Datasite that had some early results. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, just so that we have this like real life feedback loop on how the new builder can help companies?
Yeah, Datasite is one of our fantastic Agentforce customers. They were a customer on the original builder and before Agent Script. And they have since rebuilt their agents on the new builder and seen a huge bump up in deflection and just, frankly, again, peace of mind of having more control over their agents. So Grant, who's an amazing trailblazer, has been an awesome source of feedback for us. I think the things that jump out to me of what made him and Datasite successful are, one, that iterative mindset. He got hands-on, he built something simple, he tested it, he found the spots it didn't behave the way he wanted, but now he had the tools to add a little bit more control and rigor and gates where it needed to kind of keep things on the rails. And that has made him really successful. The other one is agents are not a 0 to 1 problem. It is really easy to get a V1 of an agent and demo it and even launch it. But the real work of building agents is post-deploy, watching what it's doing in production, seeing what's working and what's not, bringing that back to the builder, tweaking something, trying again, and measuring that. And I think that, more than anything, is what really stands out to me in the Datasite story, is they were really closely monitoring those early agents and finding the patterns that worked for them and improving quickly. And that's where the outcomes came from.
I like what you're saying, that building an agent is not this magical spell that will completely make, all this DevOps knowledge disappear. The same DevOps loop, infinite loop, applies to building agents.
Absolutely.
Now, when I think of building in the new builder, there's something that every builder has to adapt their mindsets, that we now have sub-agents. Can you tell me more about what role it plays in building on Agentforce?
Yep. Yeah. So this week we have officially announced and renamed topics, as you may have known them, as sub-agents. There's kind of two real reads of that. One is just acknowledging, like, we were pretty early with launching topics. Like, Agentforce has been a multi-agent system from the first day it launched. And we want to make sure that as we grow that system, we're doing it in a way that kind of meets the way the industry talks about it and has grown as well. But more than just a name, it's a signal as well of, like, the best practice for building agents, of moving towards this idea of composable sub-agents that do a specific job that you knit together, that have like their little control, their little guardrails, and then hand off when needed, versus these big monolithic systems. So one, I think it's just like an easier way to talk about the product and hopefully resonates more with the developer community. And two, I think it reflects where we think the architecture of successful agents is really going.
I like how you're phrasing it. It's like we had it all along.
I don't know. It's a work in progress, but we had some things on the right track.
Yeah. We are now a few hours from TDX starting. What do you feel is going to be the big takeaway out of those packed 2 days of conference?
AI is changing what it means to build. Writing is building. These modern tools and coding agents reduce the time from an idea to something you can get your hands on and try to, like, next to nothing. And I hope that folks will see that with the new builder, with Script, and with the ability to build from any of these third-party tools, all of our builders can move much, much faster. We'll be announcing a Claude Code plugin to build on Agentforce and open source skills for the agent development lifecycle. And all of that all ties back into the product as well. So I hope the unlock for everyone is what a lot of us have experienced in our personal lives working with these AI tools, is how it can amplify your creativity and help you build more than ever before.
Awesome. Now, last question, little bonus question, zooming out from the Salesforce context. This is more about you and your day-to-day access to AI tools. Do you have one particular tool and one particular use case that really changed how you're managing your day-to-day?
Yeah, I guess I'll stay in a work setting, but I have personally found kind of building out your own little vault of files. I use Obsidian just for my own, like, local personal
you're
stuff.
one of those Obsidian guys.
Yeah, and then, like, being able to, like, hook that up to AI and have, like, your little source of truth memory that you're, like, working off of, pretty transformative.
Second brain.
Yep, exactly, the second brain stuff. And I think increasingly that's going to get friendlier and more accessible to less technical folks.
All right, that's one more reason why I've been, like, pushing back a little bit on Obsidian with the idea of having everything into an MD file without Obsidian might be enough, but I guess now I need to give it a shot.
Well, honestly, it's more than anything, it's a time where things are changing so fast. You just got to try stuff. I'll try something new tomorrow. Like, the real key to this is, like, just continue to play around with these tools, learn what feels right to you and what's effective for you, worry a little bit less about what's being posted on social media, and just see what's valuable. And that's what I enjoy.
Well, Aron, I'm so grateful that we were able to grab a few minutes out of your day before TDX. And I'm looking forward to hearing about the big announcement about the next few days.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.